Hello, this is Britton Manasco, and welcome to Leading Lights. I want to introduce you to my guest today, Mo Schlick, and she is head or director of global sales ops and enablement at FIS. Welcome, Mo.
Thanks, Britton.
And Mo spoke at the recent Sales Enablement Society conference, the global conference that occurred in Dallas. She can share some of her insights with us. But I'm just going to start with you telling us a little bit about your role there at FIS.
I am new to FIS, pretty much. So I started in October, and I am on the ops team, and I liaise with sales learning and enablement to ensure that they get everything that they need from a learning perspective to be more effective. So, I did a rotation around sales support throughout my career, and it's kind of nice. I get to be the internal client for a change. It's nice.
So, and what is the scope of the sales enablement in general? I mean, how many people, tell us a little, maybe in the context of what FIS does.
FIS is a global organization, and it's one of the largest fintech organizations there is. They sell to banks and financial institutions, the platforms that they run on, and we have a sales group of several hundred sales reps throughout Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and North America.
And what do you think has kind of contributed to this sort of demand for a sales and enablement role at the organization?
Well, I come from a culture and a background, a sales enablement culture that's pretty strong. And I come with some very, like-minded travelers to FIS. And where I came from back in 2010, sales enablement was its own independent function, apart from sales learning, apart from marketing. And it really was a situation where we believed fully in supporting the sales reps straight the way through the sales process, right? So defining every stage of the sales process and really doing all the heavy blocking and tackling for the sales reps straight the way through. Right. Since my career has gone on and I've worked with other organizations, I find that that isn't always the rule. So going into a new place, having to make the case that, we could be doing more for sales is one of the things that I generally always encounter. But like I said, here at FIS, I'm with, fellow travelers, who have the same kind of, they have the same kind of philosophy about sales that I do. So it's kind of exciting.
Well, let's get into that. So let's talk a bit about that philosophy and kind of the, sort of distinct point of view you brought to the conference when you spoke. Mm-hmm. And why don't you share some of those insights?
Sure. So one of the things that that I stress really heavily was that our sales transformations, to the point that people still call it a sales transformation,
right,
they're not complete, right? So back in, say, 2010, 2011, some people were even earlier than that, we started to look at the challenger sale, right? And we started to talk about consultative selling. We moved away from product selling to a more, consultative partnership, right? With our customers to try to, get them to see unrecognized needs, right? To get them to think a little bit differently about their business, to challenge them, right? Why we call it challenger, to bring them insights. I think that caught fire, right? That caught fire for a while, and it was like the thing, right? We had, corporate executive board, and everybody, out there, serious decisions. And everybody's running the sales conferences, to jump on this new wave. And, out of that sales enablement, at least in our culture, sales enablement was born. I actually think that when you have a really strong sales learning program and you've gotten into experiential learning,
Right.
You actually take the learning into the sales process. So it actually becomes this thing that is organic, that you have this function that now is about measuring progress through the sales process, about getting in there with the sales reps and blocking and tackling and just, and obviously messaging is a huge part of that, right? Because it's all about the conversation once you make contact with a customer. We do a lot in sales enablement for our sales reps. What we don't do is take them through the value conversation straight the way through the process. That's one of the things that very few organizations do, even ones that have a robust sales enablement function. At the last organization where I worked for a media company. I did just that. We got the we got the buy-in of product and marketing and sales enablement work together to actually construct the logic of a conversation to sell into the full portfolio of our solutions.
Right.
So it was something that I'd never done before, and it worked beautifully. And so it really got me thinking about the role of sales enablement and what's possible for us to do. The stuff that we leave to all the sales reps that we don't inspect. We don't inspect the persuasion.
Right.
And it's really curious to me that that's the case. We just leave it up to them. I guess we just hope we hire the right people and, and call it a day. We think that, perhaps there's this X factor in sales and you're just a good salesperson or you're not a good salesperson, right?
Right.
I'll teach you all the stuff you need to know from a product and solution standpoint, and then you make your way through these steps of the sales process without supplying the logic that we know because we created solutions for the customer.
Right.
In most cases, companies know how to do that, but they just don't.
And how does that, how do you, in creating a value conversation, what did you learn about the process of doing that, the discipline of doing that, the craft?
So one thing that I discovered is that you do need internal resources focused on this. You don't need writers to write scripts. That's not what this is about for messaging. What you need is somebody that's akin to maybe a lawyer. What you need to do is be making the case for your products and services based on a theory of the case.
Right.
A point of view about what your customers should or could be doing better based on the challenges that they face. I'm sorry, I'm going to have a visitor in a second. So you need people that sit between, the living sales process,
right,
between marketing and between learning. So it's sales enablement. So that's the case. That's exactly where sales enablement resides. It resides in the sales messaging and the sales motion.
Right.
So I've had people tell me, no, it's marketing. Marketing is supposed to do that. Well, marketing people are not, they stop at the water's edge. They're there to give you the leads. They're there to they can give you information in terms of the personas. They can create the thought leadership too, right? Mm-hmm. The research and the thought leadership and those pieces that are critical to having that point of view and expressing that point of view.
Yeah.
But what you need in order to translate it into sound and motion that makes sense to salespeople is you need somebody that inside of sales enablement.
Right. And so do you find yourself playing that role of the lawyer? Are you personally engaged in that kind of work, or how do you,
I did find myself in that role before. I'm not there right now in my company. I'm just, we're trying to build up to sales kickoff. But yeah, I find myself saying the unsaid said.
Yes.
Drawing a line between who the company is to its very core, its DNA, its mission statement, its value statement. Explaining why we create the products and solutions that we do in the way that we create them. That's a choice.
Right.
That's perspective, right? It's not a given. When you can actually start to put words around that, then what you've got is a clear differentiator. You've got something unique about your company, and how do you activate that in the sales conversation? That's what's interesting to me, right?
Yeah.
How do you activate that around a customer's problem?
Right.
Or whatever it is that you're trying to get to? How do you use the thought leadership that you've created, the research that you've created to bolster that point of view? And then it becomes sort of a standardized theory of a case.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter the proof points. I mean, salespeople can bring in all the proof points that they want. They can tell all the anecdotes and stories that bring that to life. And that's where they're good, right?
Right.
But having them put that puzzle piece together, I mean, that's a completely different, set of skills. We don't hire for that, by the way, from our salespeople. We don't. We hire for the way that they can bring that to life, the conversationalist, the relationship builder, that person that's got an intuitive sense. We don't hire for them to be able to make the case for our products and solutions in a way that's really going to be compelling and useful for the customer.
So what's ahead for you going forward? We can wrap on this point.
So one of the funny things about the case study that I brought up at Sales Enablement Society was, we had about 12 to 15 products, right? Depending on how you sliced it. We have close to 300 where I am right now, right?
Yeah.
So creating simplicity for one, for that former group was a lot easier to think about than creating it for a much larger, much more complex organization, selling actually much more complex products and solutions at that, right?
Right.
So the customer problem is a little bit more, it's varied. Several, industries, vertical industries, even within the financial industry. And there's a lot of complexity about, how we solve problems for those customers.
Yeah.
So for me, part of my journey, not just the stuff that I'm getting paid to do, right? I'm thinking constantly about these principles of sales enablement that I've learned through my travels, right?
Yeah.
And I want to see how they apply in this brand new situation, right? I want to test that theory because if it works, it works.
Yeah.
And so far, what I realized is it doesn't really matter that there are 300 products because each seller doesn't sell 300 products. The sellers sell what they sell.
Yeah.
It's a different conversation. So even if we have to do more, it may not be simple for us, but it needs to be simple for them. And that is the work of sales enablement.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to wrap with that. Thank you, Mo. Thanks for joining us. This is a really impressive, thoughtful, forward-looking point of view.
Thank you.
And I think you've given all of the audience, viewers, something to consider, think about, hopefully apply. So thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.